Hey everybody, welcome back to another KGLW news drop type of video, although there's not actually a lot of KGLW news right now. Anyways, if you're a King Gizz fan, consider subscribing, and I also like to shout out other King Gizz content creators, both on YouTube and people that do merch or whatever else. So if you're interested in any of that, consider subscribing and subscribing to those that I shout out in all the videos that I do like this. So like I said, there's not a lot of King Gizz news, at least right now. They did just play a festival out in Australia, and they will be starting their European tour at the beginning of August. So today we'll talk a little bit about King Gizz up front, and we'll talk a little bit more about King Gizz at the end of this video, vidcast, whatever we're calling it. So I've been doing these videos about once a month, which I didn't initially plan, but I figure that's roughly a good timetable, roughly, to do these. I'll probably do roughly one a month. Might skip a month, might do two a month if there's Gizz mail. So as far as the King Gizz news up front goes, they're getting ready to start their European tour August 5th. Through September 2nd. And as far as touring next year, they haven't announced any dates, but they have promised they're going to do a South American tour next year. I think they had tried to do a South American tour prior, but pandemic happened, and I think they did play Mexico, but they didn't do a South American tour. So whenever I do videos like this, I like shouting out other content creators that do King Gizz content, whether it's exclusive or they just did a couple random videos that were King Gizz related. I also like to shout out people that create things, and we're going to talk about some websites that are doing a much better job of this than I have with my videos, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So last video, I shouted out some musicians that were doing some content, King Gizz content on YouTube, mostly focused on bass players. If you're interested in learning any King Gizz songs on bass, you should check out my last KGLW news drop video and see who I linked if you're interested in learning any bass parts for King Gizz songs. Today I was going to shout out a couple guitar players. There is Charles Mario, I think. Mario? Don't know how to pronounce your name, but great guitar videos from him. And then there's also a newer YouTuber named RubTub, who I believe has done all of Petrodragonic Apocalypse on guitar. I don't know what he's going to do next. He's already getting a lot of views, but he doesn't have very many subscribers. So go check him out and subscribe to that. A couple other great YouTube videos I've run into recently is a content creator named Jay Lee, and he kind of did a breakdown of both Shanghai and Catching Smoke off Butterfly 3000 that I thought were interesting videos. So I'm going to link his channel, and also Digital Matt, who did a analysis of sketches of Brunswick East, which is an album that I just love, and I feel like it often gets slept on in the King Gizz fandom. So yeah, you should check out those, and I will link all of that. So those are actually the only King Gizz YouTubers I'm gonna shout out. I've realized in the past month, or since my last video, that what I'm trying to do with this YouTube channel, there's a really good, tight-knit King Gizz creators community on Instagram, and I have an Instagram, but I don't use it very often. But I want to shout out some of the Instagram people that I think are doing a really good job of having their own King Gizz content or sharing others' King Gizz content. We're also going to talk about a couple websites that have been doing this for years, and we'll hopefully go in depth with them in a future video. So the two websites I'm talking about are kglw.net and then weirdoswarm.org. I'm going to DM kind of the main people that run these two websites in the future and see if there's anything more specific they're going to want me, that they would want me to talk about with their websites and all the things you can do. But right now I wanted to go ahead and give out a shout out to all of them, and they can also be found on Instagram, KGLW Net and Weirdo Swarm. Weirdo Swarm, the website, if you go to weirdoswarm.org, there is a page just for King Gizz creators, people with Etsy websites or other there's a huge list of what creative people have done with kind of King Gizz based content. That's really cool on weirdoswarm.org. And then KGLW.net actually just opened a new forum on their website. So there's a lot of King Gizz fans on Reddit, but Reddit has gone through a lot of changes recently. I only started using Reddit like this year, so I don't really know what all is going on with Reddit, but I know Reddit's a big forum where some King Gizz fans congregate, and KGLW.net seems like it might be a good alternative for huge King Gizz fans to discuss things and talk about meetups and whatever else. So other Instagram users that I gotta give a shout out to, there's Gizz Family, there is Odd Life LLC, there's also the Gizzverse podcast, which I guess whatever this is that I'm doing once a month is almost like a King Gizz podcast, but I've only been putting it on YouTube, and it's only one person. I will admit I haven't really listened to the Gizzverse podcast. I listened to like a little snippet where they were talking about hearing Head on Pill at the end of Drag Night at the Caverns, which I was there for that. I listened to like a 3-minute clip. One of the guys on the podcast was just talking about how he'd always wanted to hear that song live, and he finally got to, and it was great. And I can confirm it was, in fact, great. But yeah, I actually have not listened to their podcast regularly. I don't know how often they release a new podcast, but yeah, check out Gizzverse podcast on Instagram as well. And you should check out Scizzardland, who I need to talk about briefly. Scizzardland has done a lot of great King Gizz content, both YouTube, Instagram. I think he makes some of his own King Gizz merch, but a lot of his videos got taken down off YouTube recently. I don't really know all the specifics. I think, though, Nugs might have gone after him. Don't know if that's true, but he had filmed the acoustic night and had a shitload of views, and all of a sudden a bunch of his stuff got taken down. So I don't know what's up with that, but you should go to his YouTube, you should go to his Instagram, you should go to weirdoswarm.org and check out Scizzardland's merch through that or through his Instagram and buy something, support the dude. Yeah, he's a huge King Gizz fan. He's brought us a lot of great King Gizz content, and don't know what's going on over there, but yeah, throw him a little support, I think is what we should do. Okay, so today I'm actually doing some music discussion that is not, one small piece is King Gizz related, the other two are not. I'm never gonna really do full-on reviews, probably. I'm not really interested in like giving a number or a grade to a new album or whatever. I'm gonna talk about artists that I kind of already know, or at least songs that I already know or something. And if I'm ever having a discussion about music like this, I have listened to it at least 5 times, probably more. It's not like I just did one listen and it's an instant reaction. I've kind of tried to chew it up and digest it. So today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite artists, which is Sigur Ros. They have a new album that came out, and The Smile just released a new single called Bending Hectic. And The Smile has Tom York and Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead, who is one of my favorite bands. So it's kind of a side project. And then I also want to talk about Maddie Ashman, and I'm going to mispronounce this name, but I believe it's Tolgahan Kogulu. I don't know how to say her name, apologies, but they did a cover of Nuclear Fusion, by King Gizz. That's really, really good, and that's been out for a while. There's actually, I think, a video for it. If so, I will link it. But I just kind of wanted to talk about my initial impressions and digestions of the new Sigur Ros album, Ata, I don't know how to pronounce it, and the Smiles single, Bending Hectic, which the Smile has played a lot of new songs, I think, in the past year or so on tour that they have not officially released, but I'm not going to get into a lot of the new stuff they've done live, just the officially released single, Bending Hectic, today. But first I want to talk about Sigur Ros's new album. Kind of just my... I've been a fan of Sigur Ros since like 2005 or 6, so very long time. I saw them for the first time in 2006, and that show changed my life. It inspired my first tattoo. Big Sigur Ros fan. But obviously around that time, the albums they released in, I think, 1999. That album's actually right there, right behind me. There it is. That one, right there. That was, I think, released in 99, and then Parentheses, that was released in 2002, I think, and then Talk was 2005, and I saw them on their Talk tour. It's hard, at least for me, and I think for a lot of fans of Sigur Ros, to not compare everything to those 3 earlier albums, their sophomore, junior, and senior albums, I guess. Second, third, and fourth albums that were just help grow their popularity and what made them do world tours. And those albums are incredible, and I, probably revisit them at least once or twice every year. So I guess what I'm getting to is this new Sigur Ros album, I definitely enjoyed, but it took me a few listens for it to get its own identity. Especially like the first, I want to say like 3 songs. I think the third song is called like Skell. I'm not going to pronounce any of these Icelandic things correctly, by the way. Those first 3 songs just kind of felt reminiscent, I guess the whole album, and not that this is a bad thing, I'm a King Gizz fan, and if you're watching this, you might be too. So we King Gizz fans are a spoiled fan base by constantly getting a different sound and evolution of the band. And, being a big Radiohead fan, before we get into the Smile, going from OK Computer to Kid A was, kind of this big evolution of the band. So seeing bands grow is kind of being a fan of a band. It's cool to see them grow and evolve in ways. And this album, as much as I liked it, and I liked it more as I listened to it, the first couple listens, it just kind of felt like another Sigur Ros sounding album, which is not a diss, but it took a while for me for it to kind of gain its own personality and shape. The 4th track, though, Kletter, or however you say it, is definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album, and I think that's where the album kind of starts to get its own identity. That song, I will say, it reminded me of a song from the first season of True Detective with Matthew McConaughey. It's the end of one of the episodes. I don't know if I can find a clip of it or something. I'll put that in there. It reminded me a little bit of that song. There's some songs that reminded me a little bit of like Andrew Bird or the soundtrack to Journey, the video game Journey. It's one of my favorite video games, and Austin Wintory did a great score for it. And I know Sigur Ros has more of like an orchestra within this album, so it makes sense that there's more strings and kind of that occasionally cinematic sound, which I would say they've captured before in those early albums that I mentioned. But the album also, like I said, that track 4, Clatour, and I think it's the 7th track is just called Gold, or I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be said, but that's how it's spelled. That part of the album, I think, those 4 or 5 tracks kind of in the middle, I thought was where the album was strongest. And like I said, I think in my earlier listens, that's where I felt like the album kind of had its own personality and shape. As I listen more, though, I've kind of enjoyed the whole thing. And then after Gold, track 8 is, I keep on saying it, Yllur. It's spelled Y-L-U-R, but I have to say it kind of like that Tyler Perry Medea, Yllur. Anyways, that's all. That's it. That's all I got. Yllur. So, Sigur Ros album. It was good, the new one. If you've never listened to Sigur Ros, I'd be interested in you listening to this album and coming back and tell me what you thought about this as like a first dive into Sigur Ros, because like I said, being a fan of the band, I have an issue of inevitably comparing, this new album to a lot of their old stuff, and it's hard for me almost not to do that. But I don't want to do that. I want to give the album its own chance and not constantly compare it to the old Sigur Ros. But Jonesy's voice still sounds incredible. It's still a great album. I definitely didn't want to sound like I'm crapping on the album. I enjoyed it. I just, like I said, especially earlier in the album, first few tracks, it just feels like they're doing, at least initially, it felt like they're doing lesser versions of old ideas almost. But eventually the album kind of expands. And now that I've probably listened to the album around like 7 or 8 times, I now kind of enjoy it start to finish. But I still do think the middle parts, roughly I think tracks like 4 through 7 is kind of the strongest part of the album, that middle part. Okay, so the Smile single, Bending Hectic. This is, I love this song. I'll just go ahead and say, it's only one song. It's not like discussing an album. It's a long song, and I like long songs, which makes sense also being a King Gizz fan. Love long songs. So this one's over like 7 minutes. I think it's like 7.5 minutes maybe. And yeah, it's hard to talk about this song, but it gets big at the end, but the drumming at the beginning is a little bit more avant-garde and kind of all over the place, and the guitar picking that I assume is Johnny, I don't know, reminds me a little bit of kind of like those sketches that Jeff Buckley did in the 90s, some of them. And Jeff Buckley has been a known influence for Radiohead and Thom Yorke. I think they mentioned seeing him live right before they recorded some of the Benz tracks. And yeah, there's these pockets of things. It's like, ooh, that reminds me a little of this and a little of that, but it also, the song for the first good bit is kind of swimming in this strange soup. Yeah, it's one song. Just, I don't know. Do I really need to discuss just one song? Well, I'm the one choosing to discuss it because I'm a huge fan of Radiohead and any side projects they do. So I would just say listen to Bending Hectic, and if the first half feels a little too swimmy for you, just wait it out, and it'll pop your pooper. What a phrase, pop your pooper. Okay, so last I just wanted to talk about this Nuclear Fusion cover by Maddie Ashman and, like I said, can't pronounce it, but Tolgahan Kagulu or something like that. It's a great cover. What Maddie does vocally is really cool, and kind of like the harmonies she does. I just think this is a good example of the kind of covers that I like, because some bands, you know, they'll cover a song and they'll just do it basically almost exactly as the song is, and it's like, well, you didn't really add any of your own flair or personality. But then there's other times that people will kind of cover a song, but they'll change it. I mean, I don't want to diss them for it, but I've just heard some bands, I don't want to use any specific examples, but like they'll do a cover, but they almost change it so much that you don't even recognize that it's a cover, which could be a good thing. You know, I mean, maybe you do recognize the lyrics, but it's like they change everything, the music, the melody. It's just kind of the lyrics and it's a cover. I've definitely run into covers like that are good, but I think my favorite types of covers are like, it's definitely playing off the original song, but you're adding your own little flair to make it unique enough to have it become your own. And so I think this Maddie Ashman lady did a great job covering this song, and kind of you definitely know you're listening to Nuclear Fusion by King Gizzard if you know the original song, but it also sounds unique enough to this artist that I think it's just a great rendition and great cover. So I highly suggest checking it out, and it'll be linked below. Okay, so back to King Gizzard topics. This is actually just me analyzing things, and this is all conjecture and theories, and that's why I'm putting it closer to the end of the video. But for one, we got to talk about Residency. So King Gizz, you know, they haven't announced what their tour schedule for next year is going to be yet, which, I mean, it's, you know, it's only this summer. It's what, July? So I don't expect them to announce next year's dates till like October, November, and only some dates. But a lot of fans are wondering, are they going to do a residency again or not? Obviously, we don't know. They haven't said for sure. I definitely do think they appreciated that there was less stress probably and hustle and bustle, you know, going from city to city to city, show to show to show, like a normal tour. But also with the residency, you know, they only really did 4 locations. I mean, if you count Boston Calling and Hollywood Bowl, yes, I guess they did 6 locations. But as far as the actual residencies, they only did 4 locations. And, you know, some people, it's like, okay, I'll travel for one show, or I'll travel for all of those shows at that residency. You know, I saw a couple Cavern shows. I saw all the Red Rock shows. And I personally liked the residency setup, but I get the impression that they're probably going to try to do a more normalized tour next year in the US. I base that off nothing, really. I do think they'll probably go back to residencies again eventually, and maybe they'll do kind of a split next year. Maybe they'll actually do a little bit more normalized touring with, you know, 1 or 2 residencies at certain spots where they stop and play multiple shows. Because yeah, I think they like the ability to just kind of stay in a place and kind of be able to relax and play shows there. You know, you hear from a lot of entertainers, be it musicians or comedians, you know, it's like, yes, we get to travel a lot, but, you know, we stay busy, so we often don't really get to enjoy the places that we travel, or we only get to like sightsee for a couple hours or something, and you know, it's a little more touristy, and we don't really get to like sink in and enjoy a location. And so I think the residency allows for, yes, you're still traveling, but you actually get to like appreciate the place you are, because you stay there for a few more days rather than just, you know, you're there for a day, you play a show, next day you wake up, you're on the bus, you're getting to the next location or plane or whatever. So I definitely think they'll want to do residencies again, but I just get the impression next year, as far as the US goes, I think they're going to try to do a more normalized tour. But once again, that's based on nothing other than my gut feeling. The other thing I want to talk about is Red Rocks. I've got Red Rocks theories. So for those that don't know, I kind of started this channel by doing Red Rocks 2022 audio edits, King Gizz, obviously. And then they did 3 more shows at Red Rocks this year, and I was present for all 3 of those, as well as all 3 last year. So I've been to all their Red Rock shows. Last year they had Leah Sr., and they basically did all of Murder of the Universe. I mean, yes, I know they didn't do, Floating Fire and the Acrid Corpse. They didn't do a few of the short tracks, but as far as the bulk of the 3 main suites in Murder of the Universe, they did all that last year. This year they played Superbug, and if you count all the songs they played last year, they've now played all of Infest the Rat's Nest at Red Rocks. And a song that they brought back this year was Satan Speeds Up. They played that at Red Rocks and in Chicago, and according to Stu, they had only played it once in 2014. Now, a lot of people kind of, think I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, Nonagon Infinity, Murder of the Universe, which are kind of considered a loose trilogy, and maybe kind of Stu's bread and butter. And then also Stu has mentioned how much he loves Murder of the Universe and Infest the Rat's Nest, and I definitely get the impression that he, Joey, and Cavs really love Petrodragonic Apocalypse. Are they kind of going for a completionist at Red Rocks thing, is I guess what I'm getting at. They played Satan Speeds Up and Slow Jam 1, so now they haven't played the song Empty live since 2014, but the fact that they brought Satan Speeds Up back, maybe they'll bring Empty back, and they'll want to play that next year at Red Rocks to say they've played all of Mind Fuzz at Red Rocks. And then Nonagon Infinity, they played Big Fig Wasp this year. They didn't play Invisible Face at Red Rocks, but they played it in both Chicago and Washington, so maybe they'll do that at Red Rocks. So they can say they've played all of Nonagon Infinity at Red Rocks. They still haven't done Dragon or Flamethrower live at all. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to debut either of those or both of those during this Europe tour that's coming up. Are they going to debut any songs off this second album that's coming out later this year? I personally expect to get some Gizz mail probably in August or September. I just have a feeling the album is coming out in September or October. Also don't know that for sure, but if the album is to come out in either September or October, I think August or September is when we'll get some new Gizz mail. Also, that would make sense that they would send out new Gizz mail to talk about that either right before or after the European tour is over. So, but yeah, with Red Rocks, I'm just wondering if they are kind of analyzing, trying to play albums in full. Not from start to finish. That would be cool if they ever do that, if they start touring and they're like, we're going to play all of Polygon to Wonderland through, or all of Nonagon Infinity through, or whatever it is. But I'm just talking about checklisting off the songs they've played at Red Rocks, because they just had such a huge, I think it was 86 songs over the 3-hour marathons they did last year. And, now I think between the 3 shows that they played this year, you can probably add another 15 to 20 songs that they've played. So Murder of the Universe has essentially reached completionist. Infest the Rat's Nest has kind of has hit completionist. They're only 1 track away from Mind Fuzz and Nonagon having completionist at Red Rocks. They're only a couple tracks away from Dragonic Apocalypse kind of being completed, although they haven't done a full version of Motor Spirit live yet. I have a feeling they're going to do a full version of Motor Spirit in this European tour, but we will see. So anyways, that's I guess that's all the random conjecture and theorizing and analyzing on future tours and Red Rock shows that I wanted to go over. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you should check out KGLW.net and weirdoswarm.org, and I'm hoping to talk more about these websites in the near future. Also, KGLW.net has a new forum, and weirdoswarm.org has a great page for creatives that make shirts and stickers and other interesting merch that might be worth checking into. So, also, as I said near the beginning of this video, if you're interested in King Gizz, if you're a King Gizz fan, consider subscribing. I'm going to keep doing audio edits, hopefully video edits, occasionally KGL news drops like this, and I'm always going to be shouting out other content creators that are making King Gizz videos, either exclusively or just occasionally. Oh, I didn't shout out one other person I'm going to put under here. I guess he's technically more on Twitch. I am not on Twitch, but he goes by walterooski. He has just been getting into King Gizz, and he's been posting his videos on YouTube. I've really enjoyed watching his journey into King Gizz. So yeah, I'll link something of his, maybe whatever the first video of King Gizz he saw, and you can watch all those. It's fun. He's got, I think, synesthesia, which I mentioned True Detective earlier. Rustin Cole, Matthew McConaughey's character, had synesthesia. Anyways, seeing him react to King Gizz music has just been enjoyable. I've enjoyed watching his ride, his journey into King Gizz. So you should check out his content as well, and if you're on Twitch, maybe check out his Twitch. I don't know what all he does, though. So yeah, if you're interested in King Gizz, if you're a King Gizz fan, if you're interested in keeping up with set lists and live debuts and Gizmail and other King Gizz content creators on YouTube or somewhat on Instagram, tried to shout out some Instagram people today. I'm not as active on there, but it seems like there is a good community on Instagram of creatives that support each other and are constantly kind of sharing each other's stuff. You should do that. You should subscribe here. You should subscribe to everyone I've linked below. If you're interested in King Gizz content, and you should check out those 2 websites that I shouted out, and I'm hoping to talk about more in the future. Okay, well, we might be getting some Gizz mail in the next month or 2, and I'll definitely be talking about that when it drops. That is all. Have a good day.